The way I feel about it is I have to draw back on what a nephew of mine said. He said I'm tired of having male heroes constantly let us down. And that right there, I'm like, yeah, I definitely identify with that. Especially considering Cesar Chavez, he was the biggest person that anybody, even outside of the movement, that can identify him. So, and to find out that somebody who's supposed to be a hero for a culture is pretty heartbreaking. Yeah, it's it's something that my partner and I actually we kind of cried and got depressed about. Kind of still are.
Well, to be quite frank, I'm not too surprised. I come from the perspective of someone who's a first generation. So my parents are not from here, but they've taught me a lot about, the homeland, what life was like in Mexico, or what the perspective was for people who were for us, but from this side of the border. And so I was always taught to be like very cautious of everything because Mexico has a long history of very controversial leaders, people who may have had our best interest in mind, but their actions really don't seem justifiable. And so with Cesar Chavez, I'm hoping people are more like educated on the person he is while not dismissing his efforts, because my perspective of it has been this admittedly gentrified look at him being, very holy or bigger than life, but he likely had, his own skeletons in the closet despite the amazing work he's done.
I'm really disappointed, but I'm not really shocked. Unlike my fellow classmates that have heard a lot of things about it, I heard about it last week in class, and it was shocking to me because in school I was taught about Cesar Chavez and taught that he was, a good person, and obviously good people don't really do things like this.
A lot of the news that's been circulating about Cesar Chavez lately has made me a bit frustrated with the whole thing, but at the same time not really surprising. Has been this notion about him that he really wasn't much of a good person. But at the same time, the fact that a lot of this has went under the rugs and that's only been revealed now kind of really just sucks, I would say. It puts an even greater barrier between because this was a more of a Latina workers movement, so it put up a bigger barrier in between the races, and it kind of it just made it a lot harder, I guess, to unify people. It pretty much put a division for everyone.
When I first heard about it, it brought back memories. My family was field workers, and I was little when they would do marches, and I didn't understand it at that time because I was young. I just went along with it. We would carry these red flags, and it was just something that we did. But as I grew up, I understood what was the movement for. So yeah, it was very saddening, but at the same time, it's a difficult blow, I feel, if it's actually true. He is not around to defend himself, and allegations are always allegations until proven. I kind of feel that it kind of gives the Mexican culture, the Hispanics, a bad rap because they see him as somebody who represented us, but I'm still trying to process it all because there's so much information that's being thrown out there now. How truth is Dolores's accusations, why didn't she come out sooner? There's so many questions I still have, but it is saddening to hear that. And the fact that those kind of allegations with anybody, I think is just a sad allegation to have something happen to you because somebody hurt you that way.
For me, the news about Cesar Chavez is not really shocking because I feel like there was already some talk that he did do stuff like that and that he shouldn't be idolized because of what he did, but it wasn't really mainstream yet, which is why I'm not surprised, and I'm kind of okay with him being taken down from that pedestal.
It's funny because since I've heard about the news, I've had quite a few family members actually come in and say, talking about Cesar Chavez as like a family member, an uncle. But they even said, oh, well, it was always a little thing that there are certain people that weren't allowed around to be around. Or, we just got to be careful. Don't let the kids go over here, especially little girls. And even in my own family, they grew up in San Jose. Some of them grew up in Mendota. And in both places, it was kind of known that, just the little kids, just keep them away. Little girls, actually, mainly. So that's why it wasn't surprising to hear about this news, but completely heartbreaking.
Yeah, people always let us down. Nobody's perfect. I'm not justifying what he did, but I'm also not throwing him under the bus because I don't know. I wasn't allegations are allegations. I'm not. Those kind of allegations are hard. Like I said, it's not something you want to hear of somebody that did a big piece and movement too.
I do know that there are people who idolize him, or maybe even now they have grandparents or family who knew him and they don't want to believe it. They don't want to make that separation. So I do think that separation is difficult.
A big personal one, and this is mainly coming from, first generation. We really need to do a better job at educating other Hispanics and other allies of how we can support more power given to those communities. I mean, right now we have a lot of it for other marginalized groups, but I don't really see it as much for Hispanics or Mexicans or people who are related to immigrants, because at one point California was Mexico, and there's a lot of impact you see with the aesthetic and influence, the food, the culture, everything, but there's not enough push to have a political stance for them. There's no one in their corner is what I'm saying. And so I believe that it should be a mission one day to educate a lot more of these people, support someone that will support us. That is my vision.
I mean, from a lot of the tales I have heard, a lot of the stories I have heard and perspectives, he's always been like this. He's kind of been this power hungry man. He kind of let the power get into him. Of course, what he was fighting for, the message he fought for, was amazing. It was great. It would actually benefited a lot of people. But within the own party and the system that he was working with, he kind of manipulated it and made it to his more liking, which it is disappointing. It's disappointing yet not surprising at the same time.
What I think this does is it can kind of give people the wrong impression of farm workers. There's always been rumors that, most farm workers are Mexican and that Mexicans are lazy and that they're bad people, especially with the president today, does nothing but lie. So I don't think this really puts any good light on the farm workers today.
So when I first heard about it last week, I was pretty opposed to the idea of removing his name. Because then I felt that would take away from the movement. It's already not talked about enough. And I feel like taking away his name would make it even harder to talk about it. Because it's well, now you're talking about this United Farm Workers movement. Well, the guy in there, what he did, right? And then they could just easily look over it. It's not important. But considering what has happened, they are painting over a lot of murals, going over and erasing his name. But everything that I thought might happen has actually not happened. They're actually talking about the movement more instead of just the one person. So now I do think that removing his name and titling it the United Farm Workers, that actually brings more visibility to the movement than anything else. So I'm in 100% agreement with what they're doing right now.
I'm for the United Farm Workers because my parents did that. We did that when we were kids. I worked in the fields at age 9 because that's what we did. I don't think it affects the movement because the movement is still moving, and moving forward, it's gotten better. It's always going to be a challenge, but we have gotten, we're still moving forward with it. The fact that they wanted to represent the movement with one particular person, I don't think that was even fair at the beginning. I think that it should have been always called the United Farm Workers of America and just keep it at that. I think, I don't think it's going to affect the movement. I think it's just affecting that one person because they put him up there. They idolized him for something that so many had hands in to do, to move, to push forward.
My understanding of the United Farm Workers mainly comes from an educational background. Being out there and not having any family members that were really tied to it or knew much of it during its prime, I have not heard much of them recently. I think that's just kind of a common theme with a lot of very Hispanic, Mexican, or Chicano-centric movements. They're not very vocalized about. As for how people should kind of feel about the movement, I think there should be more push to it then. If this recent string of allegations against Cesar Chavez are such a big thing, how could that discredit the movement despite all of its effort? So I think there should be more push to try and educate people on it.
I think it's really good to get our message out because with the political climate right now, I think that we should have more of a voice. And nowadays, it feels like as citizens and as just the common people, we're outnumbered against everything else that's going on right now in the world. So I feel like if we can show them that we see something is wrong, we will take action, we do have opinions, we are angry about stuff. So I hope they sort of start to notice that we are taking things seriously and that we do care about what's going on outside of just him.
It's a pretty nuanced answer, I would say. For some people, I would say that it doesn't affect their opinion. But a lot more times, people with different backgrounds, different perspectives, I would say without a doubt changes their perspective because some people aren't really more exposed to these kinds of things, these kinds of subjects. It's usually dependent on the class, race, family, and more often than not, I think I would say majority wouldn't feel affected by it because I'm pretty sure a lot of people know by now that it was mainly the workers, not really him. But I would say it is a pretty nuanced answer. Some are definitely changed with their perspective of farm workers movement.
I think that the day should always be that day, and I think it always should be still about the movement. Just because of allegations on one person, it shouldn't destroy all the work and energy and effort to change something that has been positive for the Mexican American culture. The only thing I can think about is Martin Luther King had a lot of allegations. There were so many things that they said he did, and I mean, his name is still out there as somebody who did a big movement for the Black American. Not discounting him, but I'm just saying, how would this be different? I don't know, but I don't think it should have effects on any of the movement at all.
I think it's important to still keep some of that up. It is history and it does commemorate someone's efforts, but we should be educated on it. There's a lot of fields today that have very controversial figures. I mean, think about rocket science. The original members of NASA weren't the greatest people, or the history of most biologies were eugenicists, and yet we still have their formulas named after them. We still have their models named after them. And so I think kind of the same way with Cesar Chavez. Do I think he should be the focal point of the movement? Not anymore. Absolutely not. I think the focal point was always the eagle. Very popular imagery for freedom and a lot of Hispanic-centric cultures. So my opinion is we should still keep mementos and a lot of remembrance of him, but definitely educate more people that he was not a perfect person and he was a key player, but there are other people around him that really brought the vision through.
I do think it's appropriate to take down murals and remove his name off the day because we've already done that before with days like Christopher Columbus Day. We've already, we know that they weren't actually good people and we stopped celebrating that day. So I do think it's appropriate to have it
Yeah, I think that would be it's appropriate because a lot of the things that we've figured out about other people as well, like Christopher Columbus taking away the day that we celebrate him, it's also crediting other people who worked along with it because me personally, just my opinion, dedicating a day to for it's just dedicated to a specific person who was kind of the highlight of the movement kind of discredits other people who worked in it, like Dolores Huerta. And I think just changing it into Farm Workers Day actually like gives it a more powerful kind of significance because it makes it so that it's not him who organized the movement, but it's also like the farm workers who joined in as well. It's like giving more credit to the bigger party who participated in it.
I don't really approve of that personally because in a way it's erasing history and kind of forgetting what he's done. What he did is wrong and it should be brought to light. It shouldn't just be like swept under the rug. So I think his name should be out there that people know what he's done, but like everything he's done, especially with the accusations and stuff coming out today.
It's just I just feel like it's happening so fast. All the movements happening and really fast, and I mean all the allegations that thrown out there and everything. And people are getting involved. But I guess California, because California being Hispanic, Mexican, so many of us, it's like boom. Cesar Chavez was from the area, so it hit our backyard. So everybody's like jumping the gun and like okay, and all these things about taking off murals and stuff. It's kind of like, whoa, this is all so fast. To me, I think it needs more time. People need more time to think about it, to regurgitate it, to say, okay, this did happen or this did not happen. But they're already jumping the gun.
I think right now in my intro to Chicanic study class, we are taking the effort to have a critical discussion about it. We're not taking too brass of an action, at least from my knowledge. I'm not here on campus all the time, I am aware. But if, hearing about some events that, we're going to discuss about his impact or what this leaves to his legacy, I'd love more events like that. Bring students together, share their perspective, because I think the moment we start changing days or start like dismissing entire people or more so the movements they're behind, it becomes a bit of a problem because now we're censoring our own history and we're pushing back Hispanics another 20 years.
I think I've always had the mindset of believing whoever is speaking up, whether they're male or female. I think we should always believe whoever is speaking up. I do think it's kind of sad that he was up on this pedestal for so long, knowing that he had hurt so many women, so many individuals. So I do think that's I have very strong opinions about other officials who have those allegations so far, so I do think it's very hurtful to our community, especially.
I think they're handling this pretty appropriately, actually. Instead of like disregard, because a lot of the times when a pretty significant event like this happens, sometimes it just kind of gets disregarded in a sense. Not a lot of people give a fuck about it sometimes. Gav actually making an announcement about it, making a video about it for everyone to know, interviewing students, I feel like it gives us a lot more it enables us to continue speaking out our voices, because in this generation, in this time where I would say, like, without a doubt, we are living in a dystopian era where journalism, where voices are suppressed, true journalism, a lot of fake news is spreading around. I feel like Gav allowing students to speak out their voices about this is actually very much enabling more students to continue speaking out their voices and giving us more power to say that, hey, we are not a fan of this, this needs to change. And I feel like this is just the start of it, and I'm very happy that Gav is actually starting interviews like this. It's a really well done kind of response.
I think I'm just constantly disappointed. Really what I think it is like us females as a community really need to come together, but as well as males on the other side who don't approve of this type of behavior. It's really, we have to single out those who approve of this and disassociate with them. We can't, be friends with people who do these kinds of things and still expect them to not do these kinds of things. They're getting an impression that it's okay because they still have friends and they're still like accepted into this world when they really shouldn't be. And I think that's really the only solution of how we can actually change this. As a female, I don't believe it's human nature that, guys like to say that kind of thing. I think it's like just impression and like society today.
I'm still proud of my Chicana roots. I'm still gonna talk about the movement and the positivity and still the work that we have to go, but just because one man did something wrong doesn't mean that we should start erasing everything that he's done, but time to focus on the movement more and everyone else who was involved, not just one person, not just one person.